Fred Savage became the youngest actor ever nominated for a Lead Comedy Emmy. He was 13. America loved him. But decades later, 6 women came forward with stories that shattered that image. He was removed from his own show's reboot. His co-stars stopped defending him. And the set that once launched his career became a place no one wanted to revisit. The accusations stretched back to 1993 and resurfaced in 2022 with even more disturbing details. What did they say happened behind closed doors? The answer will change how you see the show forever. The idea for the show started with 2 writers, Carol Black and Neil Marlins, who were not just partners in work, but in life too. They had worked on Growing Pains and felt something stirring inside them after that success. They wanted to create something that felt closer to their own memories, something that carried the warmth and confusion of growing up in the late 1960s and early 1970s. They thought about their childhood streets and the small moments that stayed with them. Marlens remembered Huntington in Long Island. Black remembered Silver Spring in Maryland. When they sat together and talked about those years, the pieces began to fall in place. They imagined a show that could make adults smile at memories while also letting younger viewers feel seen. At first, ABC didn't think the idea would work, but time passed and minds changed. With a second look, the network gave them a chance. They knew from the start that the heart of the show needed a voice that could guide the story from the inside. That became the adult narration. Carol Black later said they wanted to show how a child's silence never meant an empty mind. Kids feel more than they say. They think more than they speak. The narration became a window into Kevin's private world, a place where his thoughts could unfold with honesty. Daniel Stern stepped into that role and added a calm, warm tone that wrapped the show in something gentle. When Allie Mills first read the script, she felt the spark instantly. She said it was unlike anything she had ever seen. The narration didn't sit on top of the story. It lived inside it, giving meaning to moments that might have seemed small on their own. The creators didn't come up with that idea in isolation. They were deeply influenced by the movie A Christmas Story, a film that let an adult narrator look back at childhood with both humor and affection. They loved how the movie captured specific details from a certain time and still managed to feel universal. They followed that feeling. The connection between the two grew even clearer when Peter Billingsley, the kid from A Christmas Story, appeared in the final episodes of The Wonder Years as one of Kevin's roommates. It felt like both worlds nodding to each other. Even though ABC had doubts early on, one person shifted everything. Programming chief Brandon Stoddard watched the pilot and sensed something different. He made a bold choice. He put the first episode right after Super Bowl XXVIII on January 31, 1988. The game drew nearly 92 million viewers. By the time the show aired, almost 29 million people were watching. The opening hit like lightning. Within 6 episodes, it was already in the top 10 and soon won an Emmy for Best Comedy. The timing helped, but it was the story that kept people watching. Fred Savage was already known from The Princess Bride. His role as the grandson in that 1987 film had shown casting directors that he could switch between innocence and deeper emotion without forcing it. When the creators needed a young actor who could carry a coming-of-age story, Savage's face came back to them. He had a way of looking unsure and brave at the same time. That balance became essential for Kevin Arnold. The show needed a kid who could express growing pains without saying too much. Savage had that ability. His earlier work proved he could handle heavier scenes, and that made him stand out among other young actors. Danica McKellar found her way into the story almost by chance. She first came in to audition for a small guest role, not expecting much. Her sister Crystal auditioned too, and both made strong impressions. But something happened when Danica stood next to Fred Savage. The chemistry felt natural, simple, and honest. The producers noticed it right away and offered her a bigger role. Their first kiss in the pilot became a moment fans still remember. For both actors, it was their first real kiss. The scene needed to feel awkward and sweet at the same time, and because they were both nervous, the emotion came through in every take. The team filmed the moment several times to capture the sincerity they wanted, and that careful attention set the tone for the rest of the show. Dan Lauria and Ali Mills brought the Arnold parents to life in a way that grounded everything. Lauria had been a Marine before he became an actor, and that experience shaped his portrayal of Jack Arnold. There was a firmness in his voice and a heaviness in his presence that felt real. Mills added warmth that softened the rough edges. Together, they reflected families of that era who were dealing with shifting roles and growing pressures. Their dynamic helped anchor the show in reality. People watching at home could see their own parents in them. The friendships and conflicts around Kevin also needed the right balance. Josh Saviano as Paul Pfeiffer became the steady best friend, the one who offered quiet support and humor. Jason Hervey as Wayne Arnold added tension and frustration as the older brother who never missed a chance to poke at Kevin's insecurities. This triangle created a familiar rhythm for anyone who grew up with siblings or close friends. Their performances captured the messy mix of loyalty, rivalry, and love that shapes early teenage years. Daniel Stern's narration tied all of this together. His voice became the soul of the show, guiding viewers through Kevin's memories with warmth and reflection. The tone made the story feel almost literary, like a diary read aloud. It allowed the show to explore deeper themes without ever losing the gentle humor that kept it grounded. The narration lingered in the minds of viewers long after episodes ended, and it became one of the most recognizable parts of the series. When the show premiered after the Super Bowl in January 1988, the impact was immediate. The timing brought millions of eyes, but it was the emotional honesty that made people stay. The death of Kevin's childhood friend in the first episode showed that this wasn't going to be a typical sitcom. Joe Cocker's voice singing, "With a little help from my friends," set the tone. And suddenly, the show had carved out a space of its own. It became only the second show in history to premiere after a Super Bowl and transform that moment into long-term success. Critics responded quickly. Reviews praised the show for feeling fresh, emotional, and more grounded than anything else on television at the time. It moved through stories about first love, family pressures, and national tension with a sense of truth. The voiceover helped the show reach both adults who remembered the late 1960s and kids who were living through their own struggles. It climbed into the Nielsen Top 30 for 4 straight seasons and kept earning praise year after year. The Wonder Years even made Emmy history in 1988. After only 6 episodes, it won the Emmy for Outstanding Comedy Series at the 40th Primetime Emmy Awards. That almost never happened with new shows. It also earned a Peabody Award in 1989 for pushing the boundaries of sitcom storytelling. Over time, the show collected 22 awards and 54 more nominations. It proved that people were ready for a different way of telling stories about growing up. Fred Savage added another milestone when he became the youngest actor ever nominated for Outstanding Lead Actor in a comedy series. He was 13 years and 70 days old in 1989. That record still stands. His performance showed that even a young actor could carry a series built on emotional depth. He was nominated again the next year, cementing his place in TV history. The real Wonder Years house sat quietly at 516 University Avenue in Burbank. and from the outside, it looked like any other one-story home built in 1949. 3 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, nothing dramatic at first glance. Yet it carried the kind of weight that comes from years of people watching it on their screens. The address appeared in every season from 1988 to 1993, and because of that, fans still walk by slowly, almost like they are stepping into Kevin Arnold's world for a moment. The owners have lived there since before the show even began filming, and they barely changed anything, which only keeps the feeling stronger. Today, the house is worth more than $1.4 million. Yet what matters more is how familiar it feels. It appeared every week in the opening credits, which is one reason it became one of the most recognizable TV homes ever. Even though the show felt like it came from some warm little town in Middle America, the truth moved in a different direction. Most of the filming happened around Los Angeles. The Arnold family's street was in Burbank, while school scenes were done at Rosemead High School and Van Nuys High School. Other neighborhoods were used too, and the production team walked block after block, looking for places that felt like the late 1960s. They hunted for homes with the right windows, streets with the right trees, and little corners that carried that soft, nostalgic mood. Because of that, fans can visit these spots even today and find them looking almost the same as they did decades ago. The owners of the Burbank house have lived with fans stopping by for years. They see people taking photos, pointing at the porch, or trying to recreate moments they watched on TV. They never opened the doors for tours, but they let people take pictures from the sidewalk as long as they behaved kindly. Some fans even left small gifts or notes over the years, which shows how strongly a fictional family can attach itself to real lives. Bit by bit, the house turned into a landmark, even though no one planned it that way. The story settled into the walls, and people kept coming back to feel a piece of it. Inside the house, you saw on the show, nothing belonged to the Burbank home. Every interior scene, from the living room to the kitchen, was created on a soundstage at Fox Studios in Culver City. The production team studied old catalogs, searched antique shops across 3 states, and filled the set with props that belonged to the 1960s. The couch, the wallpaper, the lamps, even the fridge all came from careful choices. The outside was real, but the inside was built like a memory. This split gave the show complete control over the look, and it blended both worlds so smoothly that most viewers never even questioned it. The story around the show wasn't always peaceful. In March 1993, a costume designer named Monique Long filed a sexual harassment lawsuit against Fred Savage, who was only 16 then, and Jason Hervey, who was 20. She said they made her job difficult with verbal remarks and unwanted behavior, and she claimed no one listened when she complained. She named the actors, producers, and the production companies in the lawsuit. She said the workplace felt hostile and that she eventually got fired because of it. The case moved through Los Angeles Superior Court, and it stirred up questions that reached far beyond the set. The network and the actors' representatives denied everything and called it a nuisance suit, meant to damage reputations. The case was settled quietly, the terms sealed, and the lawsuit was dropped. Fred Savage later said he felt cleared, even though he remained upset by the experience. Some crew members said they believed the claims had no ground, while others stayed uncertain. The controversy left a shadow over the show, and people began wondering how much they truly knew about the workplace behind that warm family story. Years later, in a 2018 interview, Allie Mills, who played Norma Arnold, spoke openly. She said the lawsuit was ridiculous and that the network canceled the show because of it. She believed the series still had life left, that the ratings were strong, and that fear of scandal pushed the executives to end it. She defended Fred Savage fiercely, calling him gentle and kind. But not everyone agreed. Some crew members said Monique Long's dismissal had nothing to do with harassment and everything to do with work performance. These different perspectives kept the debate alive. Even now, people argue about whether the lawsuit ended the show or whether the show had simply run its course. Fred Savage faced another wave of allegations in 2018, this time from a costume designer on the show The Grinder. She said he struck her arm, used intimidation, and created a hostile environment for female staff. Savage denied all of it again. The studio investigated and found no evidence to support the claims, and the lawsuit was dismissed in 2019. Even so, the repeated accusations made his public image more complicated. What people once saw as a clean boy next door now carried layers, and those layers shaped the way some viewers remember him. Behind the scenes, filming the show never stayed as cozy as it looked. Child labor rules shaped every shooting day. Fred Savage had to attend school for at least 3 hours, which meant tutors constantly pulling him away from scenes. Sometimes he would leave for lessons and be rushed back 20 minutes later to finish a shot. Scenes were filmed out of order, and juggling school, acting, and rest turned long days into tiring ones. The adults waited while the kids moved back and forth. For the young cast, it was less like working on a sweet family show and more like trying to survive a demanding schedule while growing up at the same time. The stories in the show grew heavier as the seasons went on. Vietnam trauma, family arguments, Karen's rebellion, and the darker side of the 1960s began to shape the tone. These storylines needed genuine emotion, and many scenes left the young actors drained. They had to cry on cue, feel heartbreak, or carry the weight of adult problems in a world where they were still just kids. The realism made the show powerful, but it also made the set tense. Some days, the emotional weight lingered long after the cameras stopped. At the same time, the cast dealt with tabloid attention. Danica McKellar and Fred Savage grew older, and the media built stories around them as a teen couple. People watched them closely, asked questions, repeated gossip, and blurred the line between their characters and their real lives. This attention followed them everywhere and made the pressure sharper. They were young, trying to work, trying to live, and the spotlight felt brighter than they wanted. For many of the cast, the set became a strange mix of opportunity and emotional strain. The original run of the Wonder Years built its name fast, and once it started climbing, it didn't slow down. In its very first season, it slipped into the Nielsen Top 30 and then stayed there for 4 straight years. Awards followed it almost immediately. It won the Primetime Emmy for Outstanding Comedy Series in 1988, only 6 episodes after its debut, something almost unheard of at the time. And while the show rose, Fred Savage made history alongside it. At 13, he became the youngest actor ever nominated for Outstanding Lead Actor in a comedy series. The industry kept watching, and the show kept collecting praise. A Peabody Award arrived in 1989 for pushing sitcoms into new territory. By the end of its run, it had won 22 awards and earned 54 nominations, landing a spot on TV Guide's list of the 20 best shows of the 1980s. In 1997, the episode My Father's Office reached number 29 on TV Guide's list of the 100 greatest episodes ever made. Even the reboot carried the same spark. Between 2021 and 2023, it earned its own Peabody Award, along with 7 wins and 18 nominations from groups like the NAACP Image Awards and the Black Reel Awards. The story had changed, but the impact stayed strong. The influence stretched far beyond numbers. The way the show told its story shaped what teen television would look like for years. The adult narration, delivered by Daniel Stern, created a soft mix of hindsight and memory that felt fresh in the late 1980s. It wasn't just commentary, It felt like someone older slipping back into a younger version of themselves, trying to make sense of moments that once felt confusing. That style inspired shows like Everybody Hates Chris and How I Met Your Mother, and even guided a whole wave of childhood comedies built on nostalgia. Ali Mills once said she didn't understand the narration at first because it felt so different. But when she heard how it blended with the scenes, she realized how powerful it was. The single camera setup and the absence of a laugh track made every moment feel real. It gave the narrator's voice room to carry emotion and humor without forcing anything. That contrast between what the child felt in the moment and what the adult understood later became a model for future coming-of-age stories. When the reboot arrived in 2021, it carried the heart of the original but stepped into a different world. Saladin K. Patterson created it with Lee Daniels, and together they reimagined the story through a black middle-class family living in Montgomery, Alabama during the late 1960s. That shift opened the door to talk about segregation, civil rights, and the everyday reality of growing up black during that era. The pilot aired on September 22, 2021, and gained attention almost immediately. Critics responded with warmth and respect. Rotten Tomatoes gave it a 96% approval score from 24 critics, with an average of 7.7 out of 10. Reviewers called it sweetly nostalgic, but also grounded, reflecting a time when the world was changing at every corner. The setting brought depth the original series never had space to explore, turning the reboot into something that stood on its own, rather than living in the shadow of the past. The visual world of the reboot helped this shift feel even more real. Instead of recreating the original locations in California, the team built everything fresh. They filmed in Atlanta and Montgomery and shaped period-accurate neighborhoods instead of reusing the old suburban sets. Historic streets in DeKalb County appeared again on screen, including parts of Lithonia Main Street. In Montgomery, they captured downtown spaces that carried the weight of history in their walls. The creators wanted every frame to feel grounded, so viewers could step into the world as if they were living in the late 1960s. That attention to detail created a world that felt lived in, something that matched the emotional tone of the story. Still, even with strong reviews and awards, the reboot couldn't outrun the usual challenges of network television. In 2023, ABC canceled it after 2 seasons, with its final episode airing on May 24th. Ratings played a part, and some believed the controversy surrounding Fred Savage, who directed several episodes, added pressure the network didn't want. Fans and critics expressed disappointment because the show felt like it had more to say. Its short run became another reminder of how difficult it is to revive beloved classics in a landscape where viewers change quickly and networks move even faster. The controversy around Savage reached back to the original run and followed him into the reboot. His public image shifted sharply because of allegations. In 1993, Monique Long, a costume designer, filed a lawsuit accusing him and Jason Hervey of harassment. The case was settled out of court, and the show's 7th season ended sooner than expected. Savage denied everything, yet the cloud around the situation never completely faded. In 2022, new accusations surfaced from 6 women working on the reboot. They described unsettling moments, including aggressive behavior in private, and stories that made people see him in a different light. One woman said his eyes would go dead when he was angry. Another spoke of an incident at a bar, and another described uncomfortable tension with a younger colleague. After an internal investigation, he was removed as executive producer and director. Savage released a statement saying he wanted to fix anything he had done that caused harm. But his reputation had already taken a deep hit. The fallout didn't end there. Ali Mills, who played Kevin's mother, carried deep frustration about how everything unfolded. She had always defended Savage and believed the original lawsuit was baseless. She called him the least offensive and sweetest person she had ever worked with. She felt the show was forced off the air unfairly and blamed the settlement for creating the appearance of guilt. She said ABC should have fired the accuser rather than paying her. Her anger lingered for years, and every time she talked about the lawsuit, she spoke with the same bitterness. To her, the show was punished without reason, and she saw the whole story as a complete injustice. All of this made reunions harder than anyone expected. Fans often dream of the old cast gathering again, laughing on the same set, telling stories about their childhood years. But the reality now sits under a heavy shadow. At the 2024 Knoxville convention, 6 of the 7 main cast members appeared for photos and panels. Savage was absent, and everyone felt the gap he left. Some fans said the missing face changed the entire energy of the event. His brother Ben has also kept distance from reunions. What should have been warm nostalgia now carries tension because the past is no longer simple. The charming memories of the show are still there, but now they sit beside legal battles, accusations, broken trust, and the complicated truth of how people change as the years pass.